What's good, YouTubers and YouTubettes? This is JB Sports, back again with another one. Danny Garcia, former 2-division world champion, will fight at the Barclays Center this Saturday night, taking on Jose Benavidez Jr. This should be a very fan-friendly fight, very exciting matchup. Now, Danny Garcia has one of the best resumes in boxing. I was actually at his fight that he won that put him on the boxing map. Now, he had some fights before that, but it was the fight that actually put him on the boxing map when he defeated Erik Morales. That fight took place in Houston, Texas, my hometown. I was at that fight, and I thought he was going to lose to Morales going into the fight. Morales had just came off of a loss to Marcus Maidana in a fight that a lot of people, including myself, thought he won. He went into the Maidana fight. A lot of people was worried about his safety. They were thinking about he was going to get annihilated. They thought he was going to get Ben Taub. If you know what Ben Taub is, that's a hospital. A lot of people thought he was going to get Ben Taub out here. They thought he was going to go to Ben Taub out here in Houston, you know, after that fight, man. They thought he was going to get seriously hurt. That's how vicious Marcus Maidana was at that time. But he actually put on a great performance. And in my opinion, won that fight. Didn't get the decision. I think he lost, I don't know if it was, I can't remember. I think it was a split decision. It might have been a unanimous decision. Now that I think about it, it was a unanimous decision loss to Marcus Maidana. The fight that I thought he lost, Marcus Maidana, I thought he lost that fight to Erik Morales. But after that fight, he took on Danny Garcia. And I thought Danny Garcia was too green for Erik Morales. I didn't think he was ready for Erik Morales, but he went in there and he beat Erik Morales. It was a very competitive fight, but in the second half of the fight, Danny Garcia took over. And he won that fight. Very, very impressive performance. He dropped Erik Morales, and he won a very, very competitive fight until the second half of the fight. I think rounds 8 through 12, that's when Danny Garcia actually separated himself from Erik Morales in a great performance. And he's been fighting big names ever since. You know, he's been in there with, you know, Keith Thurman, Sean Porter, Errol Spence Jr., Lamont Peterson, Lucas Mathise. He's been in there with some top names. Amir Khan, and we talking about Amir Khan when Amir Khan was over here in the United States and one of the biggest names from the UK that came to the United States. He had beaten Marcus Maidana. He had beaten, he beat some other people too. I can't remember. He beat Marcus Maidana, Zab Judah. He was a guy that had beat some impressive people down here, Amir Khan, and he stopped him. So he's been in there with the best of the best, man. Best of the best. And the 3 losses that he had, 2 of them were very close. Now, him and his dad out here talking about that fight with Errol Spence Jr. was close. I don't care what CompuBox was saying or what they were showing on TV. That was not a close fight. Errol Spence Jr. won that fight 10 rounds to 2, 9 rounds to 3 if we just being nice to Danny Garcia. He won a couple rounds at the end. You know, the second half of the fight, he might have stole by 2 rounds, but he didn't do nothing in the first half of the fight. He got dominated. The first 8 rounds, Danny Garcia might have won 1 round. So that was not a close loss. Like Danny Garcia and his dad and trainer Angel Garcia has been saying. They saying, oh man, we threw the same amount of punches, or we landed the same amount of punches. It was a very competitive fight. He had his moments, I had my moments. Nah. You was on the back foot from the round 1 as Errol Spence Jr. came out there establishing the jab, especially to the body, and he basically controlled the whole fight from rounds 1 to round 12. So that was not a close fight. Now I give you Keith Thurman, even though I thought you lost that fight, and Sean Porter, even though I thought you lost that fight very closely, but the Errol Spence Jr. fight was not close. That's neither here nor there. I think he's going to be in another competitive fight this Saturday night. Now, when this fight was first announced, I was not crazy about this fight. I was like, oh, you going up to 154 to fight Jose Benavidez Jr.? I was hoping he'd go in there and fight a guy that's been at that weight. So he actually fighting another guy that's coming up in weight just like him. So I don't know what this is going to mean as far as if he gets a victory. He's going to be like, okay, you beat another, blown up welterweight. So he said he's going to be more comfortable at this weight. At his age now, he's in the back 9 of his career, and we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. But what I think people are missing about Jose Benavidez Jr. is he's very long. He's very long. He's got long arms, just like his brother, very long arms. And when you think you're out of range, you're actually not out of range, man. He does a good job of setting up that right hook to the body. He's a vicious body puncher, and he's a guy that's looking to mix it up. Danny Garcia must establish the jab. I think that's going to be the key to it. He must establish the jab. I think Benavidez is going to try to back him up. He's going to try to get Danny to fight off the back foot, but Danny can fight off the back foot, unlike Benavidez Jr. He can fight off the back foot and counter everything that Benavidez is throwing at him. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. We all know what Danny Garcia brings to the table. He's got the best left hook in boxing. He's got the no-look left hook, and he can land it at any time. So you got to be very, very cautious, especially with Benavidez. Like, can go to the body. He's got to be very, very wary of that left hook. Danny Garcia, again, must establish the jab, not only to the head, but to the body, double up on the jab. And I think that's where he has his advantage. I think he's a better, he has a better jab than Benavidez Jr. Even though Benavidez Jr. has more length and is a taller fighter, he likes to mix it up. He doesn't like to really use his height. But when you look at his performance versus Terrence Crawford, I think that was his best performance. Even though he lost, he gave Terrence Crawford some problems. But Terrence Crawford has such a high boxing IQ, he was able to dissect and slowly but surely break him down and stop him in the 12th round in a very, very competitive fight. And I actually think that was one of Terrence Crawford's best performances. The Jose Benavidez Jr. fight and the Felix Diaz fight was probably, and the Victor Postol fight were probably top 3, in my opinion, the performance that Terrence Crawford put on. Because Terrence Crawford got caught with some shots against Jose Benavidez Jr. I think Terrence Crawford thought he was out of range, but he, like I said, the guy got long arms. When you think you're out of range, you're not out of range. He can still catch you with those overhand rights and those left hooks, man. He's a guy that's very, very long, and I think Danny Garcia is going to have to get a gauge of that when he gets in the ring. He's going to take him maybe some rounds to get used to that. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. I think it's going to be a competitive fight. I think Danny Garcia's overall power advantage will come into play. I just think he's just more heavy-handed with the left hand and the right hand, and I think he gets a 10th round stoppage over Jose Benavidez Jr. in a very crowd-pleasing, fan-friendly fight going down in the Barclays Center. You know, the Barclays Center is one of my best venues to watch on TV. I actually like when they have fights there because it seems like it's a more intimate setting. I've never been to Barclays Center, but just watching on TV seems like it's a more intimate setting. That and StubHub Center. A lot of people like to clown StubHub Center, say, oh man, they're fighting in a high school stadium. They actually fighting in a soccer stadium. But I just like how they got the stadium set up. It seems like a more intimate setting, in my opinion. Those two places are, in my opinion, the best 2 venues to watch on TV. The Barclays Center and the StubHub Center. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. But very, very interesting matchup. Mexico versus Puerto Rico. Jose Benavidez Jr. fought Crawford. Danny Garcia fought Errol Spence Jr. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. I like Danny Garcia. I think he's just a more versatile fighter, and he does things that play into his advantages more than Jose Benavidez Jr. does. Jose Benavidez Jr. is a guy that's a very tall fighter, but he doesn't fight tall. He's a guy that has length, but sometimes he looks to mix it up a little bit too much instead of staying behind the jab and doing everything that's based up off the jab, predicating everything off the jab. You know, the left jab and setting up the right hand, the left jumping up on the jab, making his opponent reset, which he did early on in his career. He doesn't seem to be doing that now. And in his last fight, Jose Benavidez Jr., I thought he lost his last fight. He was horrible in his last fight. I thought he lost that fight. I think if we get the Jose Benavidez Jr. that fought Terrence Crawford, shoot, we got a good fight. We got a good fight, man. I still think Danny Garcia wins, but we got a very close fight, man. Very, very close and competitive seesaw battle if we get the Jose Benavidez Jr. that fought Terrence Crawford. But the problem with that is that was, what, 4 years ago? And I haven't seen that version of him since that fight. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. I like Danny Garcia by 10th round stoppage. Follow me on Facebook, Gerard.Briscoe.3551. Follow me on Instagram, 9707 Gerard. Like, share, and subscribe to JB Sports. The man, the myth, the legend. And I holla.